shit. I know I laced it with blood.
A chump prefers a beautiful lie to an ugly truth. Iceberg motherfucking Slim. The reason I quote Iceberg Slim, among many of them, is the fact that I think he was the greatest economist this world's ever seen. He was a man who understood the value of a dollar better than Adam Smith, better than John Maynard Keynes, better than Milton Friedman. And I know those first two names are definitely economists. Last name might be a toy company, not positive. Who gives a fuck, really, if we're being honest? But Iceberg understood how much a dollar really cost. How much does a dollar really cost? I'll ask you. How much does a dollar really cost? Well, one way to answer that question, if I were to ask you, would be $1, idiot fuck. Why are you talking to me? Of course, $1 costs $1. That's why we can take a 20 to a cashier, ask for change, and get enough or comparable green paper cotton squares back that equal this imaginary number of 20. But that ain't it. That ain't the only way to answer that question. Another way to answer how much a dollar really costs would be 85 cents in euros. That's true. If I took $1 US and went over to Europe and said, let me hold the equivalent in euros in your funny money monopoly bullshit dollar, they would give me 85 cents. Which was actually, side note quickly, kind of surprising, because I thought the dollar had dipped below the euro for the longest time. The last time I thought like the dollar was stronger than the euro, we were just getting ready for Obama to be in office and me to graduate in middle school. And boy, has the world taken a change for the weird since then. But if you were to ask Iceberg Slim how much a dollar really cost, well, he would say, how long you looking for? And granted, he's talking about selling a woman's body for profit, but there's wisdom to be taken from that answer. And that's because value, much like your assortment of various prostitutes and hoes, is in the beholder. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Your bottom bitch might be your top earner because there's a few weird dudes who like girls with 2 left feet. And then Iceberg, recognizing that what he thought bottom bitch is now his top earner, he gonna keep her happy. He's gonna make love to her. He is gonna make her think he loves her, that they're Bonnie and Clyde in this prostitution game together. And I'm sure that bitch is not easy to make love to. Do you want to make love to a prostitute with 2 left feet? And for the sake of this picture I'm painting, a gap in her teeth? You don't. Or you do. But if you do, stop listening to the show. We don't need you that much. And I say all this not even really in glib. I mean it seriously to highlight the fact that value ain't up to anyone other than you. Iceberg knew that, and that's why he would take every single step or necessary precaution or preparation to earn and maximize profit, be that with pussy, drugs, pimp canes, or colorful suits. And I read the book, so I'm allowed to start off with this. I feel like I did enough homework on the pimp game to offer my 2 cents. Value is up to the person. And that's great. Because if it wasn't, we would be fucked. If we decided that we're going to leave all of the value-making decisions up to a government, a group of people, a king, a Venezuelan dictator, you would be so fucked, you would be so hungry, and you would only be able to stop being hungry if you bought a $45 billion sandwich. And that is the path we are headed on because, and I hate to sound like even remotely some old dude who said, back in my day, you gotta get a job and know the real value of a dollar and work a hard day's night or whatever the fuck old guys like to talk about where they accidentally start quoting the Beatles. The dollar fluctuates based on the things people need. And there's things that people are always going to need. Water, shelter, PS5s. But then there's going to be things that kind of come and go in terms of Are they desired or are they not? Maybe Kanye West puts out a new pair of fucking Crocs that cost $400. Some people right now, for reasons unbeknownst to me, need those shoes, really value them, really need to make sure that their entire wardrobe ensemble will finally be completed with the addition of Kanye Crocs. But there will come a day in which no one gives a fuck about Kanye West. We might have already crossed it. I don't even give a fuck the album's not out anymore. But then what happens to all those Crocs? Nobody values them? And all of a sudden you could buy them for $5 if you wanted to. And that is really an extension of the freedom we have here in the country. You don't have that everywhere. There's some countries where value for things like foam posits and loaves of bread are 100% guaranteed to not fluctuate because the government owns both of them. And if you don't like the price of them, have fun watching your head get detached from your own physical body at Tiananmen Square. So if we decide to just let value be dictated by someone other than us, we're fucked. We're done. It's over for us. Gone will be any level of autonomy you have in your life. And the trick or the issue that I think confuses people is that you hear the term value and you assume or you just start to default to think about numbers, dollar signs, anything that mathematically can be represented. But that's not what value is. Do you value your free time? Do you value your physical energy? Do you value your health? Do you value time spent with your family? Do you value time spent away from your family? There's things that you don't realize are actually the things you value more than money. In fact, money is fucking useless. It really, truly is. Because if tomorrow we woke up to the breaking news that the US dollar no longer is an accepted form of currency and that the American government has decided to completely adopt crypto as its currency, all of a sudden, everyone starts killing, eating, fucking, and pillaging each other because everything that they own and all of the money they thought they had has been reset to zero. And unless you have Dogecoin, you cannot afford a private outfit of a security force to keep you safe. And that's true. That's fucking true. If you don't agree with me, think about it. If tomorrow you wake up and the news says dollars ain't worth nothing no mo, what do? My answer to you would be find the nearest closet, shut the door, and wait and pray to God himself. Because money is the root of all evil. It really is. It really, really is. Think about it. Why does anybody do anything to hurt anybody else? Granted, you could be a psychopath, a sadomasochist, or a pimp. But apart from those sociopaths, that type of personality, the people that do things that negatively hurt other people do them 9 times out of 10 for financial gain because they value what this new bag of money is going to be able to do for them more than they value other people. And that's not me getting on a soapbox. That's not me acting all high and mighty. I only give money to the homeless when I'm with other people that will see me do it. When I'm not with other people and I'm, just walking by myself and I see a homeless person, I kill them. I literally murder homeless people. I was just going to let that sit for a second. But no, if I'm with somebody and people, you see a homeless person, some people donate, some people give that homeless guy $1, but what the fuck did that do? Because now that guy still doesn't have a house, still doesn't have a family, still doesn't have a job, still doesn't have clothes, still doesn't have his own dildo. He's still sharing dildos. That guy has $1 now, cool. That guy could maybe get half a bag of peanut M&Ms, but he can't, have that roll over into a 401k. He can't. His life's not going to change because he has $1. But let's just say that dollar you gave the homeless man was the day before the hypothetical news that the US government's switching to crypto and old dollars are useless. Now what happens? Now all of a sudden, comparatively speaking, that homeless guy you gave $1 to is a motherfucking billionaire compared to you because he has all the things already to enable him to live outside in a world without law and order. You don't. You had a big old buffer of money that was supposed to act as this protective layer against you and the harsh realities of our environment. But if we decide collectively that your money is useless, you are naked and afraid in the fucking forest without Bear Grylls. Good luck. And there's homeless people and they know how to camp. And I say all this because the US government is just printing more money. And a lot of great people have made this point, but more money, more problems. And the world is facing a lot of problems. America is facing a lot of problems right now because people don't have jobs, or people don't want the jobs now available, or people are getting coronavirus, or people are getting bat flu, or people are getting chlamydia still. I don't know how we haven't solved that. People are getting vaccinated. People are getting unvaccinated. There's vaccines that will undo vaccinations. There's a litany of problems facing everybody right now, but a solution to problems, and I know a lot of you think this is true, but it is not. A solution to problems is not more money. It's really not. It can be a temporary patchwork, but a temporary patchwork is just that. Temporary. So when the Senate passes a new budget for $3.5 trillion, you should be concerned. You should be worried about the value of your fucking $10,000. Because when 3.5 trillion new dollars get printed, the second somebody hits enter and those fucking dollar bills show up in the world, the value of your $10,000 has just become the equivalent of my asshole. My asshole, with the inclusion of $3.5 trillion, is about as valuable as $10,000. And I can find somebody to quote that. Namely, your mother. Boy, I love mom jokes. Another way you could answer the question how much a dollar really costs would be fucking 85 cents in euros. Which is something that surprised the shit out of me because I always assumed the dollar was below the euro ever since about like 2008, 2009 when the world accidentally slipped into an alternate universe black hole. But turns out, good news, the dollar is more valuable than the euro right now. Partly because Europe is under attack from a wave of violence being swept in from the Middle East and coronavirus and fucking Boris Johnson looking weird and various other problems that exclusively affect Europe. But the dollar is worth more right now than the euro because turns out there's about 3.5 trillion new euros. Or dollars, excuse me. There's about 3.5 trillion new dollars. And a lot of people like money. I like it. I need it. I need it to end up not homeless. But at the same time, you don't want any of that 3.5 trillion from the government. Do you want a loan from the government? I'll answer that. No, you don't. You might think you do. You might think it's cool that you're 23 years old and you're getting $800 a week in unemployment money, despite still living at home with your parents. You might think that's tight, bro, that you're getting free money. But that money ain't free. That money is going to be included as taxable income next year when it's time for you to report to your H&R Block fucko how much money you made. And then find out, wait a minute, that $11,000 the government gave me, they want to tax me on it? They think that I owe them 33% of that $11,000 just because they gave it to me? That doesn't seem legal. I don't feel like doing Blade 3. Why am I in prison because the IRS doesn't like me? That's what happens if you really start thinking and just taking money from the government because they're offering it. And I'm someone who originally was all about this free money. When coronavirus happened, I lost my job. I didn't really have any responsibilities. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have shit. But government was still paying me. I was making more money a week on unemployment than I was making while working. That is fucked. And at first you think it's cool. You think you're winning. You think you're getting out. You think you're gaming the system. But by like week 3, you are just constantly searching for reasons not to hang yourself because the day is long. I mean, granted, time is getting shorter, and I think we are fast approaching the rapture, but when you don't have shit to do during the 24 hours you're awake, wow, is it easy to just get fucking repulsively lazy. So the solution to the problem that people don't have enough money to pay rent because they lost their job and there's a pandemic affecting the world can't be more money, because you give the people that money. Now they don't have the problem about paying rent, but now they have a mental health issue. Now the value of the dollar is less, so food costs more. Now that person who was prone to addiction spends their free government money on a bag of heroin. Do you see how just a temporary patchwork opens up Pandora's box to a whole lot more? And that's because this thing that we're using as a solution, this thing called money that we think has some concrete fixed value that can just act as a band-aid to a problem, the fact that putting it somewhere can 9 times out of 10 lead to unexpected and tenfold more problems, I think that kind of highlights how erroneous that shit is from the first place, from motherfucking Jump Street. And you're not allowed to really go around telling people that money is not real, that it's useless, that it's not backed by shit, but it's true. But however, important to point out, that doesn't make me a communist. That doesn't make me someone who thinks Karl Marx is my boyfriend. Follow me on Tumblr. You know, those types of girls, boy, are they insufferable, and usually psychology majors. But anyway, saying money is evil, saying money is bad, does not equate to you being a communist enemy of the state. A lot of times I think the reason that happens is because socially a lot of things were engineered to make sure you're labeled that, because no one wants you talking about these things. I hate communists, and I hate the motherfucking banks. I hate central banks. Do you know what a central bank is? A central bank is a government institution. Psych! It's just a privately owned business that, in at least the case of the U.S., claims in name deceptively to be a government institution, calls itself the Federal Reserve, and just prints all the money, just makes it, just has a room with an HP printer that prints out money when we need it. Whenever you need to go to the deli to get a sandwich, or we need to send young men to war and have them die over conflicts no one understands, whenever we need money to pay the bills for either of those things, we go to the Federal Reserve, they go to the room where they printed, and they print some of it. And then, but it doesn't stop there, the fun gets even more exciting, because what they do once the Federal Reserve has created and printed the money, they don't just give it to the U.S. government or any other government that's on the list of money reception from these people. What they do is loan it. They loan that money to the U.S. government. So if the U.S. government needs money so they can give people a way to buy shelter and food and stuff, they go to the Federal Reserve and say, hey guys, sorry, I need another $3.5 trillion. Federal Reserve goes, absolutely, Mr. U.S. government, thank you for calling American Express. How many interest payments are you willing to make on this money? And then $3.5 trillion shows up, federal government gets it, they distribute it to, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Tom, Dick, and Harry fuck off and do whatever they do and buy their Kia Fortes and whatnot. But then the U.S. government, they're the ones who have a bill. They have a bill direct from the Federal Reserve, which is not a government institution, which is actually run by about 4 or 5 families who have been fucking people for 300 years. But the government every month is hit with an interest payment on that $3.5 trillion. Think about that for a second. Think about how big that number can get. Do you have loans? Do you pay student loans? What's your interest on that? Maybe you have a $400 a month student loan. you're paying anywhere from $80 to $200 back in interest, depending on, what you looked like when you walked into the bank when they decided this is what your interest payment's going to be, fucking idiot, ugly fucko. Now, using that same analogy, think about in terms of the U.S. government. You took out a $3.5 trillion loan. What's 2% of that every month? I can't even think about that. I can't think of what 2% of 3.5 trillion is. Try and think about what 3.5 trillion is. In your head right now, do it with me. Think about a trillion. Now picture 2 more trillions and then half of 1 more trillion. You can't do it. A trillion is a number that really, truly, mathematically, phonetically, and just in terms of visual appearance does not even look real. It might as well go from billions, it might as well go millions, billions, than Looney Tune dollars. A trillion? Are you fucking kidding me? A trillion should be a unit of measurement reserved for just stuff that has to do with space and rockets and shit. It should have nothing to do with physical, tangible shit that can be held. Think about a room big enough to put 3.5 trillion literal dollars in ones, in fives. Fuck it, we'll even go up to 100. You still think you have enough space to put that shit anywhere? You would need all of the airplane hangars in the world and then every single cave in China where they build bioweapons. And you still wouldn't have enough room. You would need a private island, perhaps in the Caribbean, perhaps visited by famous influential people. You would need a crazy, out of the beaten path type of place to put in a obscene amount of money, like $1 trillion. You got to hide that somewhere far away with a lot of open space. And you can only go check on it if no one's watching and you fly on this specific plane. But anyway, value is up to you. You could pretend it'll be a good idea to let governments determine what value is. You can try that. You could say, hey, government, it's up to you to determine what my job is and therefore how much I get paid. And based on how much I get paid, I can determine how many of my needs and my family's needs I'm allowed to meet this month. You might be really good at math, but communist government says you're going to be a carpenter. So you make $20 a day because they say so. And then you're fucked. And then what do you do? Think about the power you have. Actually, you know what? Think about how much power you are unaware of that you have. In terms of anything. Money, commerce, fucking Rosa Parks, motherfucker. Think about that. Rosa Parks boycotted a bus after she was treated poorly on a bus. Am I greatly glossing over some key details about the course and history that led to civil rights in this country? Absolutely, but welcome to the program. Your power, or where you spend your money, where you decide to dictate where your money goes, and that's the thing that shows how much you value something, where you decide to put the thing that represents how much you value it, will dictate if that thing even remains to exist. Because if you boycott something, eventually it will disappear. It will not be self-sustainable, which is one of the benefits of capitalism. The free market decides what happens. The free market decides if you're going to get vaccinated. That sounds like a hot take, but it's probably true. Vaccines aren't free. You think Pfizer made a vaccine because out of the goodness of their own fucking heart? No. Obviously, they made a vaccine to put a microchip inside of you. Probably not, but it's fun to say, and even if they did, fucking cool. You think you haven't been tracked this entire time? But a company will make a vaccine. Someone is paying for that company to research how to make a vaccine, and then once it's done, someone's paying that company for all of the vaccines. And that person paying for them is, well, the U.S. government in this case. Okay, so the U.S. government buys all these vaccines. With what money? Well, how does the U.S. government get money? Well, taxes, right? Sure, but not all of it. What if they need more money than what they actually collect in taxes every year? Well, that happens literally all the time. That has ever happened. So how do they make up the extra money? How do they connect those dots? Well, we go to the Federal Reserve. The government bank? Well, no, it's not a government bank, even though it sounds like it. It's a private bank that makes all of the money that governments use. And then we'll give that money to Pfizer to cover the vaccine bill. But we have to pay interest on that money we took from the Federal Reserve. So how do we make up the money to pay these interest payments? Well, we just tax the people who live here, and then we make it mandatory for them to get the vaccine, which may or may not be covered by your insurance, which may result in you incurring an out-of-pocket cost. Do you see the steps involved, the complicated left turns and U-turns, all necessary just to fuck you and stick you with a bill? That's what's happening here. That's what happens when the Senate says, all right, $3.5 trillion we're going to inject into the economy and your right arm. That's good, right? No. What happens next March when you have to pay taxes? What happens when the people don't really want to go back to work because they're making more on unemployment? So why am I going to go to the fucking Waffle House and spit in people's food just to give a fat family a dinner? And I don't blame those people. I really don't. I truly don't. I'm not one of those fucking Tucker Carlson bootstraps back in my day people. Who doesn't want to not work and get paid? I don't. I fucking do not want to do it. But I do it because I also realized when I was getting paid and not working, I was the worst possible fucking version of myself. Because I had no value for the money I was spending on the things. Anything that I wanted, well, I didn't even have to contemplate the level of effort or time or travel that went into me earning the math numbers necessary for me to buy this meal, for me to buy this drink, for me to, anything that I didn't need. Because I wasn't working for it. I wasn't earning that shit. So, of course, I'll drop $100 on something I don't need because the fuck what do I care? I didn't work a full, hard, sweaty day just to earn that money. No, all I did was fucking buy a Relia card on the dark web and contribute gain-of-function research to the Chinese government. Listen, it's not a big deal. Don't look into it. Please, seriously, don't look into it, IRS. But you need to understand value is up to you. Because when value, like in my example, when I was getting paid and not working, my level of value for things was very low. Because I didn't have to work for that thing, for that money. Because who values it? Who gives a fuck? But if I was a fucking roofer working this summer on a fucking tar brush roof, getting sunburned and just awful types of conditions for working, you better motherfucking believe that $100 would mean a hell of a lot more to me than if I just got $100 from Sleepy Joe one morning. Money is the root of all evil, but it's also a tool to free yourself from these traps. Because make no mistake, as long as there's money, there are schemes and plans and fucking awful ideas being drawn up by the Rockefellers and assortment of other fucking weirdos who are figuring out ways in which to squeeze more money out of the average folk and to trick them into accepting more debt. And debt is it's actually a pretty esoteric concept. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around what debt is. Because, for example, student loans, that's an easy one. I'm in debt because I decided to go to college like a fucking idiot. But what does that debt mean? So you mean to tell me I need to earn $100,000, at which point my $100,000 loan would be covered? So then I would have $0? You mean to tell me I need to make $100,000 before I am then rewarded with the financial positioning of having $0? Well, yeah, shut up, pay income tax, and vote yes to an estate tax, moron. This is how this actually works. But no one wants to understand how finances relate to themselves because A, it's difficult, and B, People don't want you to figure this shit out. Why do you think the rich people in this country don't pay taxes? It's because they have figured out how to not pay them. Did you know you can file an LLC for yourself, become your own business, regardless of whatever the fuck you do, and then things suddenly become business expenses that every year you could write off to your taxes? And maybe that car that you buy, maybe every time you drive it, if you've incorporated yourself as a business, maybe your trips are all business expenses that your company didn't reimburse you for, even though you're the only person in your motherfucking company. These are the types of things that the billionaires know, so they can continue to be billionaires. And that is not to blame billionaires. There should be billionaires. I'm going to see how many times I can say billionaires. Watch Billions on Showtime. Billionaires are not inherently evil. They're probably inherently kind of fucking dicks, because the tools or the personality required to succeed to that level, at least financially, probably require you valuing that over other people a little bit more than most. But that's fine, because those pricks will be pricks, but then they'll give us things like fucking Facebook and Twitter and eBay and other things that ruined the world and set in course a series of events that will forever change human history. But apart from the naysaying of that, those are still inventions that changed the world. Those are still things that helped journalists speak out in countries where if they usually did that, they would be beheaded. They still made revolutionary, impactful changes to the world. So they should have $1 billion. You should be financially rewarded. But then, do not forget, they now have $1 billion. They have enough of this thing called money that they are presented with an awfully tricky and really, really hard to stay disciplined situation in which they have to decide what's valuable. They have to decide, do I value this person's feelings? Do I value human life? Because I have billions of dollars. I could have people killed if I wanted. I could have the blood of a youthful charlatan injected into my body to avoid the aging process because I can. I could buy people's silence because I have the money. So with great money comes great money responsibility, to quote Uncle Ben, who is dead and never existed. So maybe we should stop fucking glorifying Spider-Man, his uncle, not even Spider-Man. Fucking Christ, am I sick of Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. No shit, Ben. Do you have any other great tidbits of information? Like quarter after means 15 minutes on clocks. By the way, I got shot while you were wrestling. Fucking Sam Raimi movies. Stick to horror. James Gunn's a pedophile. It's enough of this left turn stuff. There are presidents who agree with me too, historically, that money, or the system in which we're getting money right now, are not good for the average person. There was presidents who tried to actually shake up how we get our money and the system in which we print it. Those presidents were shot in the back of the fucking head. You know about Abraham Lincoln, right? Abraham Lincoln, tall president, suspended habeas corpus, might have been a caveman, definitely a Rosicrucian, perhaps a warlock. Also, the man who led the Union in the Civil War, who gave the Emancipation Proclamation, who ended slavery, who gave that great speech in which he made reference to 40 acres and a mule, the compensation or the reparations that African Americans should receive for the evil, horrific institutional system of slavery that we used to build the infrastructure of this country that made it great. Boy, that was an emotional roller coaster, right? If you heard that sentence, there were several instances throughout in which you did not know how to feel. But that means this is working. So that guy, Abraham Lincoln, he was having a hard time funding the Civil War because, the country got split in half, and the majority of crops and what we would consider commercial production today all really came in the South because big open fields, really hot, the right climate for growing things, and there's little benefit of having humans work as slaves until they drop dead for you. So a way to fix this money problem was Abraham Lincoln decided to literally just create a new system of money and pay people with it. people in the Union Army. This system of money, affectionately or not, I don't even fucking know historically, who cares, came to be nicknamed greenbacks. They were the type of dollar that Lincoln created. Now, greenbacks sounds like a really funny like racial slur that combines Hispanic and Irish heritage. But apart from that distasteful analogy, greenbacks were threatening. It was a system of government that kind of predated, in America at least, the gold standard for money. But it was something that sought to free the average person from financial debt, to pay them in a currency, to compensate these people in a way that is both fair and does not ultimately in the long term, or even as far as generationally really, actually in debt and fuck over this family. So Abraham Lincoln did that, and then they shot him in the fucking head, because that's what happens when you mess with the 5 families that rule the banking sector of this world. That's what happens when you fuck with their money. JFK, same thing. JFK said the Federal Reserve, serious problem. We really cannot just have our entire economy continue on a direction of just being debt-based. Because at some point, someone's going to call and want their debt. And then what happens? So JFK, same sort of thing, thought he could break up central banks. And then what happened? His wife had to scrape his brain off of her forehead. Or he was threatening to ask about aliens. But apart from that, most people believe that JFK was killed by the CFL. Yeah, the Canadian Football League killed John F. Kennedy. But these are the 2 presidents who proposed the most radical shakeups or departures from the current financial system linked to central banks were objectively Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. And both of those men ended up with pieces of their head detached from their head. This is how dangerous it is when you fuck with the dollar. And now what's the dollar? Back to how much a dollar really cost. There was a day, or there used to be a day, in which a dollar cost X amount in gold. I think the U.S. government at one point set gold at like $20-something, and then it went on from there. And that was a good idea, because that meant whenever you had a dollar, somewhere in the fucking physical universe, there was some gold that was the representation, literally the transitive property applied to that dollar and that piece of gold. They were the same fucking thing, which was good, because gold for some reason is valuable. I don't know why. It's not. It's just as useless as money, unfortunately. It might be useful to the fucking Anunnaki who need it to make sure their planet doesn't hit our moon or whatever. But still, gold is cool. I mean, it's a metal, it's malleable. Maybe you could make a sword or a sharp object out of it, but you can't eat it. Can't fuck it. So really, what's it doing? But back at least when the US dollar was backed by gold, that meant you still had something physical somewhere. And then there was the Great Depression. And then the government said, everyone with gold, it's ours now, fuck you. If you want your gold back, you can't have it, and it's now illegal to own gold. That's real. That's a real thing. It was called the Gold Act. That actually happened. How did it happen? Well, you're not really supposed to poke around or ask these types of questions, but there may or may not have been a meeting with the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and some German guy on Jekyll Island in private, and then they came back and the government said, okay, let's take everyone's gold. That happened maybe, sure. But let's just say it did. If that happened, and it did totally, doesn't that kind of highlight just how subjective this whole money thing is? If a group of guys can go to an island and then just come back and decide, new money system, how concrete and locked in was the first money system? Because I don't think it is worth anything. So you should be very wary of a government giving money or borrowing money. The only money a government should have should be the money it takes from its citizens via legal and voted on taxes. And I hate taxes, but I believe in them. Because the alternative is to be some weird self-identified libertarian who just, pisses in bottles. But if the government is going to say, here's $3.5 trillion, and then you get a piece of it, you're going to have fun for about 8 or 9 months, and then the government's going to want their piece on that money they gave you because they have to pay these 5 fucking families. They have to pay the great-great-great-grandson of a guy from Austria who sold a painting once and then led to a rise in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. They have to pay that guy. That might sound like a crazy collection of words, but it's all true. It's fucking real. It's how this works. The government doesn't want to give you money. They want your money. Which is fucking something I think people really, really forget, because there's, in the news right now, something that everyone has had a hot take on is the concept of reparations. Going back to Abraham Lincoln quickly. Reparations originally should have happened. They 1,000% should have happened. If you were going to take an entire group of people and literally strip away and make it illegal for them to have the rights and access to things that make them literally basic human people, you then should be compensated when all of the evil white devils realize what happened or they've been killed by Django. You should have been compensated. There should have been reparations. You should have been given your 40 acres and a mule to then start a farm or start some type of livelihood or create a groundwork in which you can then earn some money. Granted, that didn't happen. You didn't exactly get it for a variety of reasons. Probably something to do with the Federal Reserve, if I'm being quite frank. And the Federal Reserve wasn't even a thing back then, but those fucking 5 families were, believe that. But now, the arguments for reparations are batshit, Looney Tunes, banana pants, crazy. And I came across an article earlier this week in which there are just random fucking white people who have mini cactuses in their Williamsburg apartments. They are just randomly Venmoing African Americans. That's it. They're just sending off $20 here and there. Hey, Jamal, sorry about slavery. Also, don't know you. You want to get dinner sometime. That's literally, truly happening. And it is insane to me. It's really crazy. And it's gone so far as that some of these white cucks have organized and filed 501c to become nonprofits because they're going to single-handedly fix the problem of reparations. I don't think we can pay people in reparations anymore. I don't. I don't see how that's going to work, because where is that money going to come from besides the fucking 5 families that started the Civil War in the fucking first place? Because me, as someone who didn't ever own people, I don't want to have anything to do with the financial bill that results in the U.S. government fairly compensating the group of people they fucked for 100 plus years. It has nothing to do with me. And the federal government doesn't want to pay that back because they can't. They don't have the money. So if they borrow the money, they can then pay out reparations, but then they need to make interest payments on that money they borrowed. So then we're going to make the interest payments the responsibility of this honky. And then enough of those honkies are going to get mad and say, we are the proud crackers against honky serfitude. And we're going to fight back, and we're going to go to Home Depot, and we're going to get torches, and we're going to organize, and all of a sudden we're going to have a problem in the Carolinas again. So how does this work? Maybe there's a way to offer reparations in a form of something other than money. Sure, okay. Maybe preferable job hiring and interview processes. Already fucking have that. And it didn't work, and a lot of times results in ways for people to be sneaky racist. Reparations can't happen. Do you know why? Because there is not a dollar amount that you can put on the value of a human being. There is not a way or a mathematical formula to say your great-great-grandfather and his father and his father and his uncle were the property of another human being and were forced to work in a field until they dropped dead. You mean to tell me that you think you could look at that situation on paper at fucking H&R Block and say, $80,000. That's how much that was worth. Generations of family strife, systematic stripping of civil rights, mental health concerns that come with that, malnutrition, no access to shelter, clean water, all of that shit. You're going to look at it and say, this is worth eeny, meeny, miny, $80,000. That's how much we're going to write you a check for you to stop bitching about slavery, about our whoopsie back in the antebellum South. That's not possible. And if it's been put that way and you've heard me say it now, I don't see how that doesn't make sense to you. That's not insulting. The very concept of the government paying somebody's great-great-great-grandchild a check for the obscenely violent and awful, horrific, just depraved acts that the government did against a group of people legally. The government said at one point, you're allowed to own people, and then we did. But fast forward a couple hundred years, 250, 200 years later, someone who was a descendant of someone who had their life cruelly taken away from them, they should get a check to just fucking, I don't know. What are you going to do with that check? You're going to go visit your great-great-grandfather's grave in fucking Georgia and put it there? Then what? You're going to come back every year until that check you threw in the dirt becomes a fucking 401k? No, it's not going to work that way. Or maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe throw in some magic beanstalks or something. I don't know what happens in Georgia. It seems like a magical place. You can't just assign a random number value to an atrocity. And I know that's something governments love to do. It's one of their favorite fucking things. But it doesn't work. And a lot of times it just ends up creating other problems that you didn't see coming, like we fucking talked about already. Someone's got to pay the bill when it shows up. But not everybody is going to remember to bring their wallet. There might be some weirdo who brought their checkbook. There might be somebody who wants to pay with a credit card. But at the end of the day, if you incur a bill, there is a company or a group of people who will find you, who will get their money, and if you're lucky, only break your legs.